Hello, thank you for joining me on The Hot Seat, brought to you by Sri Lanka Insurance. Today, I'm talking to Vinod Malwatte. He's a conservationist. He's the executive director of the Lanka Environment Fund, and he's also the co-founder of the Parrotfish Collective.
Sri Lanka Insurance Motor Plus, driven by you.
Hi Vinod, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, but you're in Arugambe and I'm a little bit jealous. But are you enjoying being there, or is it pretty much the same for you there as well in terms of being locked down?
Well, let me see. Given that it's a tourist town, I would say that things are a little lax. Just so everyone knows, I live here. I've lived here for the last 4 years. I'm not, skirting lockdown out here. But it is a tourist town, so it doesn't come with its kind of ups and downs. Ups being there is a little bit more, I guess it is a little bit more relaxed because Sri Lanka has opened up for tourism and they're welcoming people in, so you can't really tell people to come and then say, okay, you can't do something. So that's the up, I guess, that where I love to, I guess, move around a little bit, within boundaries, within restrictions.
Of course.
But I guess the down is that, COVID is quite on the rise here. We've got multiple people in, our friends or acquaintances who've also got it. And there's a huge vaccination drive. We just got vaccinated recently, like last week we got our first dose.
Yeah.
Life goes on, I guess. So we just try to avoid public places, obviously, and minimize. So there's some work that we're doing in the area with the department. So those kind of stuff still goes on. Other than for that, it's okay, I guess.
Okay, excellent. Are you finding though that any rumors or superstitions about getting vaccinated? Is any of that happening?
Yeah, there is. Obviously the classic, you should certain vaccines perceived as better vaccines than the other ones, and get this more rural area gets a certain vaccine. So if you want to, you can go get that one, which is what we did. But then others, for example, some people have been holding off on it, but a majority of the people have been getting vaccinated, so that's been great. A lot of the older people in the area have also got both doses and stuff like that. So it is.
Okay. So over here in Colombo, the big one at the moment is this kind of myth that if you get vaccinated, you become impotent. And there's a lot of craziness with that, but hopefully people aren't listening too much. Okay, let's talk about why you're here anyway. Tell us how you got into the whole environmental activism scene.
Tracy, as cliche as it may sound, it was honestly my parents' love for Sri Lanka and environment that kind of got me interested, because it was big growing up. One of their things was, before we left the country or explored the world, you need to explore your own country. So we were doing a lot of trips growing up. My sister and myself with my parents would go around the country to numerous sites that, a lot of the other people, or a lot of peers, I guess, wouldn't really go to. So much so that it came to a point when we were a little older where okay, can we go to Hubbard Lodge, because that was the cool hotel, it's can we go to bed to the beach?
Yeah.
We were always going on the camping adventures, or based in somewhere and doing multiple different things. But what I kind of realized was, as time went on, once I went to college, I realized that I kind of saw things differently, or I had a affinity towards the environment, and it was worth something. And then also going abroad, I guess I realized Sri Lanka hasn't lost a lot of its natural resources or its ecosystems. We're still a relatively pristine place, and there's a lot to fight for, as opposed to some of the other countries that have developed much further and don't have the riches that Sri Lanka has. So it was something that I felt very passionate about and wanted to get involved in. And then I just started working within the space, and then one thing led to another, and I've had multiple roles within the conservation field.
Yeah. So is that something you worry about, that our natural resources will be depleted the more developed we become?
Yeah, for sure. Already I can see it's kind of happening, and what I kind of put it down to is haphazard development or like unsustainable growth or just a lack of planning, so it would be nice to see better planning and implementation, working, all kind of government agencies working, we'll say, in tandem with each other. There's a lot of very contradictory portfolios that are like competing, and naturally, I guess the natural resources of the country do get depleted in the time. So how can we, I guess one of the big conversations is how can we kind of move towards a paradigm that's more sustainable as well as kind of responsible in itself.
Yeah. And staying with that kind of topic, like at the moment, what do you think are the most endangered species in the country?
Well, there's a lot of, as a lesser known, when you think of it, everyone thinks of the elephant, the leopard, the big guys. Obviously, human-elephant conflict in Sri Lanka is huge, and that's a very big topic. Over the last few years, there was an elephant census done in, I think, between 2010 and 2015. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but there were 6,000 elephants at the time. 6,000 elephants plus is what they were saying. And over the last few years, we've had 300 elephants confirmed every year being killed. Last year, I think it was 400. So when you do the numbers over the last 5 years, we've almost lost a good amount of that. We've almost lost 2,000 elephants.
Yeah.
So the human-elephant conflict is a big thing. As development again spreads, because elephants do need those larger areas to roam in. So that's a big one. But then something that kind of worries me are some of the lesser known charismatics that are we'll say your amphibians, your reptiles, because a lot of them are endemic to the country.
Right.
And live predominantly in the wet zone. And the wet zone's kind of in this quadrant. If you look at Sri Lanka in 4 quadrants, it's in that southwest quadrant, which is also the most densely populated area.
Yes.
So the more you kind of eat away at, more population growth, and more you kind of eat away at these forests, a lot of these habitats will be lost, which will put them at threat. And because they also aren't they aren't a leopard, a bear, or something that's charismatic, a lot of them go unspoken about, and so there is issues surrounding that as well, where we might lose a lot of our amphibian species or butterflies, dragonflies, little things like that. So a lot of the animals are at threat, I would say, especially as population grows, as well as we push as a country, we look towards development. A lot of things will, unless we do put measures and stringent rules in place to ensure that this biodiversity isn't lost.
Yeah, and then ensure that absolutely everybody sticks by those rules. I think that's one of the main things, isn't it?
That is a big issue,
Okay, so the CEA has been very aggressive with their campaigns on limiting the use of plastics. And while this is excellent, are there any other areas where you feel certain issues aren't getting the attention they deserve?
Yes, even with the plastics issue, it's obviously great, but what they've done is they've looked at banning certain types of plastic, certain grades of plastic, so that, it does, as you pointed out, rightly does address the issue in some sense, but there are great issues like effective waste management. What happens, so a lot of the time, even if our waste gets segregated, especially in the larger cities, it always goes, does it actually go and get segregated? Like you at home doing your segregation, it's well and good that you're doing it, but once it's collected, is that mechanism in place? For example, here in the East, we don't have any waste collection. So we basically collect our own trash, and a lot of our neighbors burn it. We take it to the landfill and drop it off where it all gets burnt together. So there is no effective waste management, and that is a big mechanism, I guess, that the government needs to look at. We had the Mitotmulla garbage dump disaster that killed 24 people in 2015, I think. After that, there was a lot of media on it and about moving the garbage dumps out, and only now some of those plastic bans have come about that was talked about at that time.
Yeah.
So it is almost like a reactive measure, whereas if we could be a little bit more proactive, I think that would be wonderful. And again, with the waste management, it's this out of sight, out of mind. Here as well, in this tourist town, The garbage dump is located just outside town, but it is in a very important biodiversity corridor or a connection area that a lot of animals move through. And we've seen numerous herds, including this one tusker who we've seen in Kumana as well as in the Kumukang Conservation Forest. Interestingly, we photographed the same animal in the garbage dump as well. So it is it is a sad sight. And a lot of the people in the area don't go there because you don't go to the garbage dump. You don't actually see what it's like. And in most areas, that is the case. The garbage just gets taken out, dumped, and then people just don't know about what happens about it.
Right. And so keeping that in mind, what advice would you give to everyone watching this in terms of what they can do to reduce environmental damage?
I mean, I think it starts at home. That's the big one. Like, I feel like a lot of people kind of feel useless sometimes in the entire thing because the catastrophe is so big and it's in your face. But I think remembering that it starts with yourself and that individual patterns and individual behaviors can make a difference. For example, if in a lot of Sri Lankan shops, you've got loose mungata or loose kadala that you can go pick up. It just takes a little bit more planning where you've got to get a glass bottle and then you go and you get the guys to wear it. You put it in there rather than even buying a bag that you have to rip and then you put it into your jar. So like little things like that, or loose eggs are a thing. So you can go up and if you have 2 egg cartons, you can go fill up those egg cartons. So just little things like that, I think, where you think of your consumption patterns and try to make better informed decisions.
Yeah. And I guess a lot more people now are going into sustainable packaging, and one way in which you could reinforce that idea of sustainability is really choosing what brands you choose to go with, isn't it?
Exactly, and there's a lot of information out there about which brands are doing it right. Certification programs do have their issues, but they at least are somewhat of a standard that you can go by, and you can make those decisions. There's a lot of information out there for people who are interested. So they can go out there and find what's right, just little things like using one of those wooden toothbrushes as opposed to using one of those plastic ones, that in itself has a huge impact,
Okay. So say there are Sri Lankans out there who are interested in the environment but not necessarily able to get out and work in the field or do things in the field. Is there some way in which they can still contribute and still feel like they're making a difference in terms of the environmental issues in Sri Lanka?
Tracy, there are multiple ways you could get involved. I mean, volunteering with organizations, we'll say like Pearl Protectors, who do a lot of beach cleanups. That's one of them. They've been doing a lot of work around the Express Pearl disaster and nurdle cleanups, which has been amazing. But then also, I would think there's a lot of great organizations across the island who work on shoestring budgets, who do a lot of great work, but who don't necessarily have the resources to ensure taking new employees on board, creating green jobs, or simply continuing the work that they have. So small donations, whatever is able to be donated. I know it's a tough time for everyone, and I'm not saying go out and donate everything, but like small donations, and like I said, every individual can make a difference. So if there were 10 people who donated $1,000, that's $10,000, which can go a long way for some of these organizations if there are so many people doing that on a monthly basis or on a yearly basis. So that's another way. And also just speaking up. I think there's a lot more awareness now around environmental topics. Speaking up, talking about it with your friends, sharing content, as generic as that might be, the more people who see it, suddenly environmental issues becomes more mainstream. It's cool to talk about the environment. So, why not? At least that way, maybe people will, start figuring out the dots that make a difference. So that's another way you can do that.
Okay. And speaking of education and awareness, now I know that through the Parrotfish Collective, you spend a lot of time in terms of communicating information. And actually at home, we have one of your posters. It's the Colombo Wetlands and wildlife poster. And I have to tell you, it is stunning. The sheer variety of animals, birds, mammals, whatever that you get in Colombo wetlands, I didn't know. The kids and I, and my husband, we sort of look at it, and we've gone on more adventures, not recently, but trying to find out more about these animals. It's incredible the amount of biodiversity there is. Now, is there a way that others can buy your posters and access the information that you share?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Tracy, for buying one of the posters and using it so nicely. I mean, like you said, there's so many species in Colombo that even we didn't know about, but there's a great, we're science communicators, and that's what we do. Offer, there are researchers who are doing the work, so what we try to do is bridge that gap between the researchers on the ground as well as the public who care about it. So you can buy the posters online. You can visit our Facebook page, or we've got a website that we've parrotfishcollective.org, as well as our Instagram page. You can get in touch with us there. And then we can point you in the direction of how to buy them. We've got multiple posters like that, one for Kumana and its surrounding areas, dry zone ecosystems, as well as the Colombo wetlands one. And excitingly, we've got a WILPUP to marine and terrestrial zones coming up, which would be launched, I think, later this year with the Department of Wildlife and
Wow.
GIZ.
You work in collaboration a lot, don't you? You work with the Department of Wildlife Conservation and the Department of Forest Conservation. And I know you've already mentioned the pearl protections, ocean swell, and the fishing cat working group. Do you all collaborate and share information? Is there a big support within the community for the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, Tracy, we've seen a lot more groups kind of see the value of our work and kind of come to us and say, hey, why don't you all work on it? So we've been doing hand in the comms for a lot of projects. We do videos, animations, cartoons, multitude of different work for these organizations. But it's been great because we've got and that's another way I guess people can contribute, because there are graphic designers, you might have been formally trained in something, but here you might always have had an interest in wildlife, but here's an opportunity to also be involved and use your skills in another in a way to actually educate people. So that's what we've been doing. We've been kind of building a collective of people who can drop in and out. Everyone's got their own stuff going on, but we have multiple collaborators who come in, writers, photographers, videographers, animators, and then they'll work with us for a project, and then after that, do their own thing. And if they really like it, they'll continue working with us on creating content that's engaging. And like I mentioned before, it's mainly trying to be a conduit for the researchers to get their really cool work out there, because not everyone's going to sit down and read a research paper or look at p-values, but what you can do is talk to them, and what we'll do is we'll get that information and put it in an engaging and visually appealing manner that people can then play with that information.
That's wonderful. Vinod, thank you so much for joining me today. It was really enlightening to chat with you, and good luck both with the Lanka Environment Fund and also with the Parrotfish Collective. And we'll be hoping for updates from Aragambe from you in the future. But in the meantime, take care and stay safe.
Thank you, Tracy, for the opportunity, and for everyone at Light FM for having me.
And that was today's edition of The Hot Seat, brought to you by Sri Lanka Insurance.
Sri Lanka Insurance Motor Plus, driven by you.